Well, those books have proved very popular here. We've got some early editions, and John and Ben have been colouring in like mad, and they've both done some very nice drawings, which we'll be showing to you at the end of the session. In the meantime, they've got some grown-up work to do, so I'll hand over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Matt. Yes, we've had a great time with the books, but it's time to turn our attention to more serious, because we're only a few moments away now from the start of the second session of free practice, and just pictures as we have, John, in our bank of screens in here. It's good to see weather conditions are improving.
Thank goodness we actually get a glimpse of blue sky over Silverstone, and if it doesn't rain in this final session, maybe somebody will be able to go out and go quicker than Rubens Barrichello, whose quickest time at 1:33.5 was set midway through that session. Hopefully we'll also maybe see the track drying out enough to get a glimpse of the first car to go out and run on the track on the groove slicks and get some indication of the times that are going to be, on my prediction, below the 1 minute 20 seconds, which we hope will happen in qualifying, and a lap speed probably close to 145 miles an hour around this revised Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Can't wait for Saturday afternoon to come, but nonetheless plenty of excitement in between times as this final 1 hour session on Friday afternoon is about to commence.
Well, it's a family affair for many drivers at the Silverstone Grand Prix, and even for Rubens, his sister, here this weekend as well, giving him some support. Ralf Schumacher getting ready to come back out in this second session. Ralf ending up that first one down in 16th place, but the times from the first session not particularly meaningful with the change of conditions that we saw throughout. On the other side of the Williams garage, there's plenty of work still going on, remember, because they're having to change the engine on Montoya's car. His engine letting go really quite early on in the session. Michael Schumacher had his problems, had a spin, and had to sit out the rest of that morning session. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. There is Michael, now ready to come back out for the second hour, and he'll give us a bit more opportunity to see what the Ferrari is capable here with the Bridgestone tyres on a rather damp Silverstone circuit.
Let's have a look and see what tyres Michael Schumacher is on. Is he going to go out on the intermediates as he did early in the first session, or is he going to be a little bit more prudent and just do a couple of laps on full weight? But there we got a glimpse of the sky and how rapidly the weather patterns at Silverstone do change. That blue sky, which has been missing all morning, suddenly now leading up to this final session, 1 o'clock in the UK until 2. And just please, let's get a glimpse of sunshine as well to go with that blue sky.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, and see if we could get some dry running in and give us an idea of just how quick everybody is going to be this weekend. We're counting down, and we're just a few seconds away from the green light again coming on at the end of the pit lane. And let's see whether Michael can keep it together this time and not fall off the track as he did on his out lap. Not a common mistake from the world champion, but I'm sure it won't make too much difference to the preparations for Ferrari here this weekend.
And the track is now in fact open, and we've just had some 15 seconds of the session as Eddie Irvine makes his way down, and we think that Eddie is the first car onto the track. So Eddie Irvine, 5th quickest this morning, first car out on track. And Eddie, you can see already just exiting the pit lane, probably doing about 120 miles an hour when he comes onto the track, then just fairly cautiously round through Beckett's, just checking out where the water, that heavy rain that fell towards the end of that session, might be lying.
Well, let's keep an eye on him. Let's see what happens over the course of this session. He did pretty well in the first one with the 5th fastest time, and we heard that interview with him, as you said, as you mentioned to Matt earlier on, John. I think that was one of the better interviews we've seen with Eddie recently. Certainly a bit more chatty, a bit more cheerful than we have seen him, and perhaps that means that the car is giving him a little bit more to be happy about, but those conditions really not proving anything as yet, and we've got to see how it performs in the dry. So Eddie 5th fastest, just to remind you. Barrichello fastest from earlier on, Button 2nd, Coulthard 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, then Eddie, then Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan, although he set that 6th fastest time when it really was very wet.
And you have to be careful coming into Abbey. On the left of the track you get water running across, it runs across diagonally, and again through the exit of Abbey, up the hill, down into Bridge, and again prudent through Bridge, understandably the first lap out. Michael on a full set of wet Bridgestone, so no intermediates for the world champion, and I think that that's probably quite sensible. Go out, do a 3 or a 5 lap run, get a feel for the circuit, see where the water is lying, and then come back in and have a talk to the team, discuss whether you want to make any changes or you just think it's better to stay pretty much as you are, and then go back out again, because every lap in these conditions will be different. It's so different to driving in the dry, which is constant. These wet weather conditions change, and if not by the lap, they certainly do change by the corner.
Raikkonen, let's see what he's on as well. The wet weather tyre looking pretty...
Yes, wet weather, but it looks like the shallow wet rather than the deep wet, just trying to get a look into the grooves on the tyres, and tyre companies working endlessly to try and come up with permutations, and certainly the Michelin wet here appearing to work much better than we've seen maybe at some of the other events, particularly in San Marino, where there was a massive chasm between Bridgestone and Michelin. The Silverstone test was wet in, of course, artificially wet circuits. We heard Mike Gascoigne talking about doing that at Renault.
Practice start for Ralf Schumacher as he sets off down the end of the pit lane. Williams looking for success here at Silverstone for, well, they've had a lot of wins here in the past, but it's been a while now. Back in 1997 that we saw the last victory for Williams. It was from pole and it was for Jacques Villeneuve, but that's now 5 years ago. They have had some 10 wins here at Silverstone, and that included 4 in a row between 1991 and 1994. So it has been a happy hunting ground for Williams over the years, their first ever coming with Clay Regazzoni back in 1979 on this track, although the track layout in those days, of course, slightly different to what we see now. David Coulthard, more recently a winner for McLaren, and in fact McLaren have taken the last 3 victories here at Silverstone. Last season it was with Mika Hakkinen taking his first ever Grand Prix win in Britain.
Well, very tippy toes for Michael Schumacher, just taking it round Prairie very, very gently indeed, and there's a lot of water in the middle to the outside of Prairie. It tends to gather the corner, there's a slight camber on it, and now it comes across start-finish line, and it'll probably take Michael about a lap to get down to the times of Rubens Barrichello. Though I must say, weather right now is still a lot of standing water on the track. And look at that, look at the tons of water being just shifted by those tyres.
It is amazing, isn't it, to see just how much water gets thrown off these wet tyres coming through the Beckett's complex now from one side to the other, the change of direction. And this is a feature that the Ferrari has been so good at throughout the season, John. This type of this rapid direction change has really suited the 2002 Ferrari, hasn't it?
It's all about the stability at the rear end, both to get it under braking, but also in the ability to switch directions very, very quickly indeed, and know that the back end is going to be with you. But to do that, you have to have a front end that complements the rear of the car. That's what this F2002 Ferrari has provided all, well, really since Brazil for Michael Schumacher, and then from San Marino for Rubens Barrichello. And in fact, Luciano Berti drove this car recently in a test down in Mugello. He was the former Jaguar driver last year, then he became test driver at Ferrari this year following that very, very severe accident when he drove for Prost at Spa last year. He just said the car is unbelievable. It's so...
Well, we've certainly seen that throughout the season so far, just how brilliant a car it is, and to a certain extent that's what has brought on the team orders controversy, because with no one else sometimes able to challenge them in places like Austria and the Nürburgring, it's bound to cause questions being asked about team orders. Well, we've got a spinner, David, off the track.
And that's coming out of club. It is out of club, and that was, he spun on the exit. He may have caught the curb, and certainly a fairly high speed spin that went for some considerable distance.
Very handy of them to put his name on the rear wing so we can tell who it is as they come towards us. And of course David Coulthard back on track now and up through Abbey Corner, and hopefully no damage done. Let's take a look at it.
Okay, this is the exit of club with the back end bites, grips, and even it's just a lack of grip again. Little puddles there, but I think that was just maybe too much throttle and not enough bite. You could see the car, the attitude of the car as it came out of the corner. And David had an attempt to stabilise the car once, got it back into control. Then at a second time that was just too much momentum. And of course then the pendulum effect. Here's the onboard. There's the first correction now. There's the second one. This time David, he's just got to grab the throttle, the clutch lever, and do his best to straighten the car out. Does a good job in doing it, and gets back on track, no damage, but choosing to come into the pits just to check that none of the carbon fibre aerodynamic parts, particularly around the nose and those front barge boards, have become dislodged or have become damaged.
The complex section of the track where we have grandstands all the way around, and he's just had a fairly harmless pirouette. Let's take a look.
Yeah, now watch for the water here. There's a lot of water just in the middle to the left of the picture. I think he just rear caught. There's too much water. Again, the speed, the car would maybe just partially aquaplane, just lose momentarily grip. And once that grip is gone, then it's gone forever. We saw that with Coulthard, and now we've seen it with Panis. Much slower spin for Panis. David almost in the exit of Club Corner, probably doing the best part of 100 miles an hour, if not more, when that spin occurred.
Aufstellen. Also wenn es wieder um Fahrt wäre, dann das Lenkrad rein, geht er das Lenkrad wechseln. Noch Lenkrad achten, wenn alle die Leute stehen.
Didn't want to interfere now with launch thing. Not really, Jackie. He seems to be worse on traction. Maybe a little bit better on understeer, but not noticeable. So don't really know actually. Maybe we can try with toe camber or something, because we made a big step already.
Alan is a quite slight built racing driver. Some are slightly more physical. Certainly someone like Michael Schumacher has just got more physical mass and would be able to stamp on it that much harder. Nevertheless, as Alan was pointing out, and very eloquently he did that as well, is just how much physical effort a Grand Prix car does demand. Oh, what a place to lose it, Felipe. And luckily that gravel trap, you're going through it sufficiently quickly, just sort of skimming across the surface. Not somewhere to go off. Marc Genet had a massive off there during the test early in June and took the left-hand side off his Williams BMW. Fortunately, no injury to Marc.
No, that's right, but if the track dries out, that's when you can have accidents like that, where the grass is still wet but the track is dry, the high speeds of cornering, and then if you do run wide, of course you're then going very quickly indeed across wet grass, and that's where sometimes you can see some nasty accidents occurring. You're watching Fisichella at the moment, 6th fastest after this morning's session, hasn't completed a lap just yet. Well, he has just completed one lap, but he's now back out to see what he can do in these conditions on the Bridgestone tyres and with the Jordan chassis. The team, of course, based just over the road from the main entrance here to Silverstone, so it's a big weekend for the Jordan team. They've got lots of things going on, the concert as well down at Stowe School, so it's a very, very busy weekend for the Jordan team. And after the disaster of the Nürburgring, where Fisichella hands up, so it was his fault, he ran into his teammate Takuma Sato, they really could do with a decent result here.
And there's a pretty graphic picture of just how much grip these wet weather tyres have. Coming out of club, Fisichella was hard on the throttle. You could hear the engine running up to maximum revs. The car sat there, was just stuck to the racetrack, and again through bridge, tons and tons of grip from the Bridgestone tyre on the Jordan. Fisichella now making up for those two errors we saw in the first session this morning, where he went off twice down at Vale. And at this lap, let's have a look and see Fisichella, but this is an out lap. It certainly, well, it should maybe see marginal improvement or very close to his time. 36 is what he did, 36.2. Well, he's a second and a bit, or he's 1.5 seconds off what he did this morning. But clearly, confidence is now high with the Italian. And again, all those clouds, look at them just behind there, those look awful.
Yeah, I was just
Montoya fastest, personal fastest in first and second, currently in 12th on a 37.0.
This is a good lap indeed from him, 35.4, so that's put him up to 5th place overall. And in these conditions, John, of course, that's by far the fastest we've seen in this second session of free practice so far.
Well, watch up through Maggots, this is awesome in the dry. They cut back to Rubens Barrichello, and they denied that opportunity of seeing what the Williams looks like through one of the most exciting parts of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It is, I mean, anybody who ever has a chance to go up to Beckett and watch a Grand Prix car, it is just awe-inspiring.
Let's watch from on board Barrichello and listen to the engine note as well through the tight section. Here the traction control on the exit. And once again we saw the wide entry there for Rubens as he came through Luffield.
Notice a lot less spray in some parts of the circuit. Here now on pit straight, a lot more water. It hasn't cleared away from there, but the track in parts benefiting from whatever heat has about 15, 16 degrees right now. And again, this is the rear view coming into Maggots and Beckett's. Staying off the curbs.
Oh, and we've got a spinner. One of the Minardis has gone off, and it's Mark Webber this time,
yes,
who's gone off. So with that interesting blue flashing light on the back of the car.
Yes, Jaguars are using a similar light where everybody else is using red, so there's an experiment on the part of the teams to see whether it actually gives better penetration in this terrible spray that you get off the rear wheels from a Formula 1 car. So Mark catches the water again.
Yep, just turning into Abbey Corner. No harm done. The car is undamaged. Let's just take another look at it. We've seen him get a bit sideways on the exit here a couple of times today, which he's sorted out, but just losing it under braking going into the left-hand part. No problems though for Webber. He'll be coming back into the pits. Montoya then has been one of the fastest in this session so far, but the overall fastest time still belongs to Rubens Barrichello from earlier on today. Just across the line, Jenson Button, and Montoya is still out there, still on another good lap at the moment, so we'll keep an eye on him. But just look at those clouds as we head towards Beckett's here. This is the far sequence.
I mean, that's still 140 miles an hour on the wet. Believe me, it is quite inspiring to watch.
Hard on the power there through Chapel now. He can just relax, draw breath for a moment. That sequence of Beckett's corners requiring intense concentration. And now he relaxes, now he has to build it up again into Stowe Corner. Look at the turn in, just trying to get the front of the car to respond as we switch back to Ralf Schumacher. And more improvements coming through. Montoya again on a good lap, but Ralf himself looking to improve, currently 13th.
And Ralf and Montoya running line astern are all doing roughly the same time in first sector. The second sector, a bit of a struggle, but let's have a look and see what the final time for Ralf Schumacher. He's got to beat a 36.9, where Montoya's got to beat a 35.4. Well, Ralf beats it by about 0.3 of a second from Montoya. Montoya went into the pits, so didn't complete the lap.
So Montoya decides to come back into the pits as we ride on board with David Coulthard. A little bit of oversteer correction as he comes out of Luffield through Woodcote Corner, that gentle curve that in these conditions can still be quite a challenge, and down into Copse Corner. This corner's so fast, blind on the entry as well.
In the dry, it's an entry of about 170 miles an hour. In the wet, it's probably about 130, 135. But it's here, through this sequence of 4 corners, as David again very wisely doesn't ride the curbs, and careful not to kiss the curb here on Chapel onto this Hanger Straight. It's the fastest part of the circuit, depending on where the wind's blowing from. Some days it's here, some days the fastest part of the circuit is actually into Copse Corner.
Well, last year we saw a number of drivers use those curves at Beckett's and actually end up with bent push rods in the dry conditions that we had for qualifying. And in qualifying, 1 or 2 did that and had to use their spare car. So it's something to watch out for when the track dries out. But in these conditions, as you can see, they keep a little bit off the curbs because they are very, very slippery indeed.
Coulthard able to get plenty of bite off Club Corner, something that he failed to do early in the session when he had a little spin, harmless as it was. And Michael Schumacher now makes his way back down pit lane to go back onto the track, and this is going to be Michael's second run of the day. Michael already having completed some 7 laps. This will be his second serious effort this afternoon.
Coulthard just showing where the water is. There's still some standing water through those 2 left-handers at Priory and Brooklands, with a bit of sunshine as well. So hopefully that helps it all to dry off, and accelerating around to complete another lap. Let's just see how his lap time compares with what the Williams were doing. 36.001, so that's pretty competitive with what the Williams were doing just a little while ago. Good effort that, and I think we'll see Michael Schumacher go even quicker in a moment.
Kimi Räikkönen coming up to complete a lap. Räikkönen currently, where I'm looking, he's 4th quickest on a 35.4. And can this see a small improvement? No, it doesn't. So Kimi Räikkönen remains 4th quickest with a lap time that's about just under 0.4 of a second away from what he achieved this morning.
Yes, but the time's definitely getting quicker and quicker as the track dries out just a touch. Felipe Massa in the Sauber, he's all set to come back out with the Bridgestone tyres on that car, of course. And Juan Pablo Montoya, he's had a good little initial run. The engine's working perfectly okay. They made a very successful and rapid engine change, and now he can work on the program that he has to go through to get ready for Saturday and for qualifying.
Michael Schumacher continues way around. In the meantime, Kimi Räikkönen continues his progress round and gets a personal fastest, and this is going to be an improvement, I think, for Räikkönen, because his first sector time very close to the theoretical fastest. and even closer to the real fastest, which currently stands to Barrichello.
So Montoya waits.
Felipe Massa is learning all about Silverstone in the Formula 1 car. Again, down in Vale, we've seen him off there once already. And the Brazilian comes down, brakes late, watch for the back end to start to move away. There she goes. That's as predictable as Felipe Massa.
He has done that a few times, hasn't he? Yes. Well, he gets it back on again. Hopefully no damage done once again. Nice soft grass to go off to with the rain around.
Do you know what's just in front of his teammate Takuma Sato. But again, Kimi Raikkonen, we just had a glimpse of the Finn in the McLaren as he was coming through. I think it was Club Corner. So Kimi Raikkonen en route coming into this area now. And let's have a look and see. Fisichella, yes, just down in the back end, comes around. He just grabs the clutch lever, ensures the engine doesn't stall. A little bit of excitement for the young Japanese teammates, and almost a mirror of what happened this time without contact in the European Grand Prix.
Yes, that would have been very awkward and embarrassing again, wouldn't it? There we are, there's the lose. Now, how close was Sato? Well, he had time. Oh no, he had to really anchor up a bit there, didn't he?
He wasn't quite sure which way Fisichella's car was going to go, so Raikkonen 1:35.5, now within a tenth of a second of his time from this morning. Well wide in the but I mean, he got away with that. I mean, much wider in Kopp's corner than I would have maybe thought he would like to have been, but gets away with it and continues all the way up through Beckett's. And already a further minute improvement for the Finn on his 26th lap.
So we're looking here at Raikkonen and Trulli a moment ago, and Trulli went out wide eventually, letting Raikkonen through. Looks as though there might have been a bit of confusion for a moment. Let's take a look at the replay from slightly further back.
Yes, and Raikkonen would have lost time with this because he was on a better lap, and that's where the third sector time went. He didn't know what was going to happen with Trulli, and he had to wait. Now Raikkonen, fastest of anybody through first sector, now exits out of club. Careful with the power, don't kiss the curb. There's the curb, you've got to watch that on the exit of club.
Now up towards Abbey. Let's take a look at the stability through this section. This is where Michael has been sliding a bit around, but he keeps it all pretty neat and tidy through that section. No way you take bridge flat out in these conditions. And now into Priory, keeping a wide line there. Oh, he got a bit on the curb, which just caused it to slide.
He uses the curb in the inside of Brooklands, which he seems to be able to get away with. Not many have been doing that, but it's the attitude he gets the car. He doesn't load up that inside front wheel. So this could see Raikkonen move up from his current fourth place, put him possibly ahead of his own teammate. Well, it will do David Coulthard, who's on a 35.2. Indeed, he goes second best.
So that's the fastest time we've seen in this second session of free practice so far, a 34.671. Barrichello's time, remember, set earlier on today when the track was a little drier. Now it's time for Raikkonen's teammate, David Coulthard, to venture forth onto the track. Temperature climbing a little bit, but not that much. We started at around 14 degrees for the beginning of the free practice session, and it's really just trying to climb up a little bit, but the cloud still covering the area. So looking at Alex Jung here, I wonder what happened to him as he made his way around. Oh, he got it all a bit out of shape. We saw a bit of an off earlier on from Mark Webber up at Abbey. This is down at Vale, and once again other cars around, but hopefully managing to avoid him.
Yeah, and he stopped in the middle of Vale, absolutely 90 degrees to the flow of traffic as we go back to Jenson Button. Button now down to third place, his time from this morning 34.7. He hasn't been able to improve upon, but he's been strong through both sessions so far.
Now let's just watch here.
Intermediates.
Yes, indeed, intermediates for the Ferrari. This is Michael Schumacher, and he obviously feels the track conditions have dried out sufficiently. Now it's the Bridgestone intermediates that have been brilliant. Certainly last year, John, we had a couple of races where the Bridgestone intermediates were absolutely superb and allowed Ferrari to take some great results.
Yes, indeed, and Michael now deciding it's time to go out. The ambient temperature, track temperature, is still relatively low, but they are coming up. Good news is the humidity, and that's i.e. the rain that's been falling, is beginning to drop as well. And just looking down further through the timing on page 5, on channel 5 of your remote control, Eddie Irvine now also, and I wouldn't be surprised if Irvine has gone on to that intermediate Michelin. We saw him on it in that first session doing a 29.8 in the first sector, which is the best he's seen all day.
So Jenson Button crosses the line, a 1:37.3 as he begins to build up some speed. He needs to find a couple of seconds from that to be comparable with the McLarens that we've seen setting a good pace just recently. They're both Ferraris on track, as you can see at the moment, and Barrichello being a bit held up behind his teammate.
Yeah, he has sort of overran Michael coming through the exit of Beckett's. Michael, of course, out on those intermediates, and Rubens on I assume on full wets. Michael not terribly anxious to let Rubens go through, but this opportunity, he says, well, I'm on my out lap, it doesn't matter, and he just didn't want to be in the spray of his teammate or in fact of any other car. There you can see when he went offline how much water there is still on this track if you do go offline.
Certainly can't count against Rubens Barrichello taking a repeat win if the conditions stay like this, John, because he always does seem to go well whenever the tracks are a little bit questionable.
Well, I mean, the results indicate that, but I do think that sometimes those circumstances arise and then people start to put two and two together and they come up with inevitably five. And I think some of the drives we've seen from Barrichello this year in normal conditions have been outstanding, and I think the win at Hockenheim in 2000 was maybe a function of other factors, not just simply that Rubens happened to be pretty good in the wet.
Yeah, that's true. And Michael Schumacher, of course, is stunning in the wet conditions. We've seen that on so many occasions. And just go back to 98 here in the rain when he was incredibly quick in the Ferrari and took his one and only British Grand Prix win. So just coming across the line, Rubens Barrichello, a 36.356. So that's not the fastest pace at the moment, but he still holds on to the fastest time overall that he set a little earlier on today. And there's a little sis watching. He's keeping an eye on Big Brother and seeing what he's up to on track as he continues to hold that top spot on the times here. Raikkonen second, Button third, Coulthard fourth, Montoya fifth, Michael Schumacher sixth fastest now, ahead of Irvine, Fisichella and then De La Rosa.
First sector time, 29.1 for Barrichello. Michael Schumacher is quicker. Intermediates have now made the crossover, but this is on the first sector. But having said that, Rubens Barrichello actually has improved on that as well. Now that first sector benchmark is 28.772, but nevertheless we're getting to the point in the session with just under half the session remaining where the intermediate Bridgestone is beginning to rear its head and look very promising.
So yes, this is a good lap from Rubens Barrichello, and we'll keep an eye on him. Barrichello just slightly ahead of Michael Schumacher, and got yellows.
Ralf Schumacher is off down at Vale, so we've got yellow flags down at the bottom of the circuit, the furthest point from the pits. So Ralph's recovered from that spin as Rubens continues again, fastest, personal best, everything in the second sector. So the Brazilian, maybe it is, Ben, something about the water that he gets on with.
Well, he's certainly flying at the moment. He's got just the end of the lap to complete, and this is going to go faster than, yes, there we are, than his previous best from earlier on today, 1:32.145. Michael, a 1:33.431. So Michael, we know for sure, is on intermediates, and about a second slower than Barrichello. So we'll try and get an eye on exactly what they're on. Ralf Schumacher has had this minor little spin by the looks of things.
Yeah, that was a minute ago down at Vale. Seems to be the most popular corner for spins both in the morning and afternoon. It's a downhill corner. It's not particularly difficult, but the most important thing, you've got to get the speed off, as David Coulthard displays his, and that is again into Vale.
I think the yellows were out, and I think perhaps he was just notifying that he had seen the yellow and was trying to back off. Michael, yes, fast through the first sector, and there you can see a bit more brightness around on the edges of all this cloud. Thankfully we haven't seen any more rain in this second session of free practice as yet, and we've still got just over 24.5 minutes to go.
You know, it's amazing. Michael Schumacher fastest in the first sector, about a tenth of a second, less than a tenth quicker than this man Rubens Barrichello, who currently is the fastest car on track, 1:32.145, and that is 12 seconds off the pole time for last year's Grand Prix in perfect dry conditions.
Now is Rubens staying out? Yes, he is, for another lap to complete this one. And let's see where this puts him. 32.1 his previous best, a 31.9 now from Rubens Barrichello, but Michael Schumacher may well be faster than that to cross the line. No, it's not, a 32.2 there from Michael. The two Ferraris keeping their fans happy with some consistently fast performances, but we don't really see many of the other possible front runners on track apart from this man, Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, well, Ralf Schumacher, but Juan Pablo Montoya is the quickest of the Michelin runners through sector 1. He seems to have lost some time in sector 2, but it's still a personal best as we go back to teammate Ralf Schumacher, currently 12th quickest, looking to improve in a 36.6. He does a 35.4, who's up to 7th place.
Yes, but this is where we do see a big difference in times, from Ferrari to Williams and perhaps to Coulthard in the McLaren. Yes, again, you see big difference now that the Ferraris have put those intermediates on. This is perhaps where they have the edge, because their times are now getting quicker and quicker very rapidly. Everyone else still seems to be stuck around the 34-35 second bracket.
Yeah, and this is the worst scenario for the Michelin. This intermediate tyre, they've not been able to develop it as successfully as Bridgestone have done. We heard Mike Gascoigne explaining to us earlier that even though they artificially wet tracks to try and create a situation which you'd use an intermediate tyre, they've not managed to crack that particular problem. As De La Rosa comes in, those are the full wet from Michelin. De La Rosa still 8th quickest.
Better and better.
Team manager there in the background as well. I'm afraid Arrows still sitting in the pits. No action from the two Arrows cars of Heinz Harald Frentzen and Enrique Bernoldi as we await any news that might be forthcoming about the money situation. Tom Walkinshaw and the Arrows team in court yesterday. They owe money to Cosworth.
Oh, David, David, you were so quick into Abbey. You had no chance of getting around that corner.
Well, he didn't make it, but he's back on, so that's good news for him, but that's rather messed up what was looking to be quite a promising lap. Good first sector, 28.847 seconds.
Well, here's the view of it. I mean, look at them. There's just no chance in the world. I mean, I think we should take him back to Silverstone, the driving school, and point out you have to brake a little bit earlier in these conditions. Nevertheless, give him marks for trying, but I mean, just too much momentum, not enough grip, and the back end got away, but he gets back onto the track and he'll go back into the pits. At least the team will appreciate to see their drivers out trying. So many drivers sometimes just sit back and whatever, but David at least was giving it a go.
On board with Kimi Räikkönen here, looking at the front suspension. Fisichella's just gone third fastest, so Jordan showing well on their Bridgestone tyres as well. I wonder if he's on that magic intermediate. He may well be. So Fisichella now third fastest as we watch Michael Schumacher likely to go even faster on this lap. And is he going to beat Barrichello's time?
He's lost time in that second sector. I don't know whether it's because he's got behind him Takuma Sato, whether he had to pass Sato on this lap. That might have cost him. He's lost, well, the best part of half a second, 0.6 of a second over what would be the best in that second sector time. It may be an improvement in time, but no, it's not, unfortunately. 32.4 against the 32.1. But the threat is there, but it's coming in the first third of the lap. The track is, at this point, showing quickest signs of drying out as we go back to Fisichella. Third quickest personal best in that first sector. Once again, wait to see what happens in sectors 2 and 3.
Yes, he's going well now, the Italian. And let's see whether he can string together a few decent laps and put it all together on this Bridgestone tyre. Now through Bridge Corner, fast through there, but controlled, and now up towards the left-hander at Priory. As you can see, he's about a second down on Barrichello's intermediate time.
Well, that would see an improvement in time if he can maintain it through these final two corners. Again, this long right-hand Luffield, one of those frustrating corners. You always have to be patient, wait for the car to find the grip rather than trying to bully it into getting grip and then maybe paying the consequence.
Third fastest still for Fisichella. Slight improvement in his time, but he stays there in third position behind the two Ferraris. Räikkönen is currently fourth. Let's see what Villeneuve's doing. He's also on the Bridgestone tyre, remember.
Well, this should see an improvement. Villeneuve is 12th, goes up to 9th, so it's a small improvement, but it's in the right direction for the BAR team as we go to Michael Schumacher, fastest in the first sector. Nothing, well, let's say 2/10 down on the theoretical best in second sector as Rubens walks out of the Ferrari garage, comes across start finish line. Will this make a difference? He is quickest, 1:31.881.
So Michael Schumacher goes to the top of the timesheets. It's still a Ferrari 1-2, but it's the other way around as the track begins to dry off. Mark Webber has had another off, and hopefully, I think without any problem, he's managed to get back on again.
Down at Vale once again.
Well, a very neat and tidy pirouette from the Australian, and the rain is falling again. Well, we've managed to get through the majority of this second hour without any more rain falling, but it looks like it's beginning to rain again, and that's a shame, just as we're seeing the times beginning to tumble. Fisichella surely won't be able to go any quicker now that the rain's coming down again.
It'll depend just where the rain's falling. We saw pretty much the start-finish line, whether it's fallen sufficiently here in Luffield to affect this lap. Giancarlo Fisichella, a personal fastest time in that first sector, marginally down in the second sector. We're looking to see an improvement of 33.5. He does, he improves by 1/10 of a second, but still stays third.
Good effort. Jordan seemed to be going well. Nick Damon is with Gary Anderson.
Gary Anderson, it's noticeable that Takuma's started out there doing many laps. This is a track he goes very well. But British Formula 3 in testing. What's the thought behind the high level of laps you're running?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because obviously there's a bit of noise about it. I can't hear you.
They're saying Takuma's done an awful lot of laps. Not this time because he doesn't know the track.
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve?
It's just really the wet conditions. I mean, it's the weather's supposed to get better for the weekend, but there's a chance of rain tomorrow. So just experimenting some wet setup.
How delicate is the mix between wet and intermediate?
Sorry, again?
How close is the point between wet and intermediate?
Well, I mean, about 1 minute 34, 1 minute 35, the wet sort of stopped going anymore, and then the intermediate takes over at that point, takes you down to probably 1 minute 28, and then you can get onto dry tyre.
And are you still happy that Bridgestone have that advantage in the wet?
Well, the Michelin's look quite strong at the moment. I mean, the Ferraris are up there, obviously, but the Michelin's don't look slow in these conditions. So I think it'll be a good battle.
Thank you.
Well, good performance from the Bridgestone tyre with Jacques Villeneuve just popping up to fourth. So now we have a Bridgestone 1, 2, 3, 4. Raikkonen, fastest of the Michelin runners, in fifth, and then it's Montoya sixth, Sato, Button, Ralf Schumacher and Coulthard.
Well, that little bit of rain we saw falling pretty much looks like it stopped. There may be the odd spit and spot, but what I think has become pretty evident, Ben, is that the Bridgestone intermediate tyre in these conditions is the tyre to have, and right now Michelin do not appear to have any response to that advantage that Bridgestone are enjoying. Look at Jensen still in full wet, now struggling just as he comes out of Copse, having to be very delicate on the throttle, just kisses the curb on the exit, runs down into Abbey. Watch the braking very late. Don't overrun like Coulthard didn't, get the nose in, uses curb on the apex now, much more like a traditional conventional racing line, and pretty much on it through bridge.
Well, he's just got the latter part of the lap to finish off, but as you can see from the splits, it's a lot slower than the Ferrari on the intermediate Bridgestone, so he's not going to make any difference really to his times here at the moment. Button finished fifth here a couple of years ago when he was driving for this team, the Williams team. Scored 2 points on his British Grand Prix debut, and this weekend hoping that he might get a chance to get onto the podium. They're still chasing their first podium of the year, the Renault team. Williams, well, they're hoping to challenge Ferrari. Again, that rain falling though, and that's
okay, guys, at the end of this run, we'll have full drain out and cool the car down, please. Full drain out, cool the car.
Well, that's an exit at Abbey. And one of the problems with a circuit like Silverstone, it's over a very large area, unlike some of the more modern circuits which are much more compact. So you get this, what they call a microclimate. And it can be raining down at Stowe, for example, and not at the pits, or vice versa. And that's, I suspect, what we're probably saying. There is a little localized rain shower at one part of the track, but it's pretty much not raining elsewhere.
That's right, yes. Looks like some areas it is, and some areas it's not. Good time this, though, from Montoya compared. It does improve his time, puts him up to fourth. So he now is the fastest of the Michelin runners on a 1:33.8, 4/10 slower than Fisichella's time.
Villeneuve, can he respond? He was fourth, he lost it to Montoya. Well, not this time, 34.4 as opposed to a 34.3. But consistency, which is equally important for BAR.
Now a little replay of Michael Schumacher. Let's see what was going on for him. Coming in very wide into Luffield, but not too wide. coming in to take the apex, and the back end breaking away middle of the corner, and then he came into the pits anyway.
I'm not sure whether he had planned on this lap to come in, or whether that little oversteer in the middle exit, again just locking up the brake, we'd see putting correction to get the speed down to make sure he doesn't exceed the 60 kilometers per hour, which applies in practice and throughout today and tomorrow morning. Well, rain, you can see the rain now it's falling heavily in pit lane.
Yes, that's right. Montoya's actually just gone through the first sector better than he has done so far, but with this rain falling, that's going to make life pretty difficult for him once again. And the hardy Silverstone fans, well, they've got everything required to keep them dry, but it is a shame that their first opportunity to see Grand Prix cars in action this year has to be in such miserable conditions.
Eddie Irvine comes across start-finish line, and this is the beginning of a lap for Eddie Irvine, who put so much faith in Jaguar with these changes that have been introduced for this Grand Prix. Initially running very strongly, and now dropping back, Irvine down to 15th, De La Rosa 11th. But this is not going to be something that they needed. Wet weather was not what they'd hoped for. They want to get a solid day's running, so down Hanger Straight, under the bridge. And watch for the dry line on the left. You can see the sheen on the surface as you come into Stowe. You've got to stay off that, otherwise you'll just aquaplane straight off the track.
Has a quick glance in the mirror. And for some reason we seem to have problems with our pictures, so sorry about that if you're experiencing the same problems as we are. We'll hopefully get those pictures back on track as quickly as possible, and we'll hope to have everything back as it should be in just a moment or two. But obviously the rain getting into the works on the TV side of things, as well as into the mechanicals sometimes.
A big wobble for Villeneuve through Maggots and into Beckett's. So, Jacques Villeneuve buoyed up by the fact that he's up to 5th quickest, and he hasn't been there really on a regular basis since, I suppose, back in his days when he was a world champion driving for Williams Grand Prix Engineering.
Twice a winner here, of course, at Silverstone in 1996 and 1997. Jacques Villeneuve taking the wins in the Williams Renault as it was then. Now this is the Williams BMW. Still got the problems with the pictures, so do apologise for this break in the pictures that you're seeing. We're experiencing exactly the same problem, so I do hope that it's not causing you too much inconvenience. We're seeing Michael Schumacher now just getting ready to come back out. His teammate Rubens Barrichello is on track and trying to further improve, trying to move up from what is now second, because he saw his time beaten by Michael a little while ago. And despite that rain on the start-finish straight, it does still seem to be improving elsewhere.
Yes, this is the problem of a circuit of the scale of Silverstone. You do get wet weather one part, it can be not raining and it almost be sunshine in other parts of the circuit, and with the clouds swirling around, we've got a lot of cloud all over the circuit. Then all of a sudden out pops a bit of blue sky, and you think, oh well, that's it, we're going to have a good end to this session. And then within 5 minutes, one of those things, big black cloud piles back over the circuit and everything goes back to status quo.
So there you're looking at the top speeds on the speed trap so far. David Coulthard still with that highest speed of 231 kilometers per hour. Barrichello not so fast, but it's not that important in these conditions to have the highest top speed, that's for sure. And indeed Barrichello on one of the other speed traps, yes, actually does have the higher speed trap figure. So it's interesting to look at the two different points where we're getting the speed traps.
I think that one of the speed traps we're looking at is actually the cars are actually braking before they get to the speed trap because of the conditions, rather than we'd normally expect to see a much higher speed in that particular one that Coulthard's heading, whereas in one of the other ones where Barrichello's doing 299, let's say 300 kilometres. So it's just a positioning, I think, of the speed trap, and of course weather conditions mean that you have to get off the throttle that much earlier, and that's how sensitive the speed traps are to the entry to these corners.
Well, this is the entry to Copse Corner, and Coulthard deals with that very well indeed, as Ralf Schumacher prepares to come back out on track. Still just over 8.5 minutes to go in this second session of free practice for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Fairly typical British summer weather conditions, I'm afraid. Today we've seen rain on and off throughout the course of the morning. And here's a man who's struggling a little bit. Alan McNish down in 18th position, faster only than Alex Young of the people who've been on track here today. Of course, neither Arrows has been out, and his teammate Mika Salo has only done one lap because he's suffering food poisoning, and Alan does seem to be struggling a bit.
Yes, and I think part of the struggle is that there isn't a teammate out there to to help speed up the process of coming to terms with Silverstone in these conditions. So it's all resting on Alan's shoulders, and his experience of Silverstone is another formula, not in Formula One. And in these wet conditions, of course, you sort of, you don't know where to start from, and you don't even know where your target is.
Barrichello's on a very good lap here. It could well be faster than Michael Schumacher's time, and this could put him fastest overall again. Yes, it does. So Rubens Barrichello goes faster again than Michael Schumacher. The two Ferraris so much quicker than anybody else currently. They're over a second and a half quicker than their nearest opposition, Giancarlo Fisichella, and the two of them separated by just 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, it's a big bunch of time. I think good job by Jordan and Fisichella to be third quickest. In other words, best of the rest. But these two cars, now that is just a little error, just trying a little bit too hard as they come through. Again, that Abbey Michael Schumacher got caught out earlier on this morning. As we look into the Jordan garage and look at Giancarlo Fisichella's in the eyes, just the impassive look as he reads off the information on the telemetry screen. Kimi Räikkönen, always exciting. Comes through. This is through Maggots, Beckett's, and then out onto Hangar Straight. And even in these wet conditions, the Finn fully committed. Currently down in 6th place, waiting to see that split time where it is 29.2. Well, that's 1.2 seconds off the best that we've seen from Barrichello. It's showing 0.8, in fact, on the overall fastest lap. So Kimi Räikkönen within the zone and would look to improve on this lap should he be able to continue the improvement we've seen for him in the first sector.
So what can the 22-year-old do? Let's keep an eye on him. Scoring points here last year when he was driving for Sauber, and this year, of course, driving for McLaren. Great results last time out with that third place finish, so he's now had 2 third place finishes this season driving for McLaren. And it was an impressive effort. One little mistake in the European Grand Prix. After that, he drove extremely well and certainly showed the Williams drivers, Ralf Schumacher in particular, the way that the McLaren saved its rear tyres, gave Kimi that opportunity to move up into third place, and he grasped that opportunity with both hands. Let's just see whether this is going to improve his time at the moment, currently down in 6th place, but I don't think this will move him up the order.
Well, certainly trying and pushing very hard through Luffield. 3 point, yes, stays. That was actually about 0.7 of a second again, slower than his best. So they're just having a little look, temperature checks. It's interesting that what Williams are doing, the two mechanics with the fire extinguishers in the event of any problem. Sam Michael standing over watching. It's curious to know what they're doing.
Well, they're just trying to see what gets very hot, I think, when he comes back into the pits and sees how much heat's being thrown off each part of the car.
Yeah, of course, when you go onto the grid, and with Williams being at the front of the grid for a number of Grand Prix, they're the team that is sitting there for the longest period in time. And, it's one of the things when a driver's on the front row or in pole position, you want to make sure you get there with the field bunched up to you as much as possible and not rush off and get there and then sit and have to wait for maybe 2 minutes or a minute and a half, and all that heat build up and heat soak, which can be a cause. As we know, the BMW engine is ultimately temperature sensitive, and if the temperature gets above a certain preset limit, I wouldn't be surprised if the engine actually would shut itself down.
Well, it's certainly all part of the research that has to go on throughout the course of a Grand Prix weekend. We're taking a look at the live super slow-mo down at Club Corner as Michael Schumacher gets on the power and exits that long corner, and a little bit of correction required in the middle. Despite the traction control, you still need good reactions to keep the car under control as he continues round. This lap not particularly quick, but Barrichello's on an improving lap once again. He's just gone through the first sector fastest. Alex Young is the cause of the latest yellow flag. That's just behind the area that we've seen Michael Schumacher go through. It's that same place, it's that entry into Vale.
Yes, real problem corner for everybody. Alex Young still stranded there. Either he's not found a clear part of track to rejoin, or in fact he may have stalled.
The car won't go into gear, it's stuck in between 4th and 5th.
Well, a problem for Alex Young. It's stuck between 4th and 5th.
Alex, switch the ignition off, man. Switch the ignition off and make sure the marshals press the neutral button to pull you off.
I'm getting out.
And you can see how much heat's coming out of the back of the Minardi. You can see blue smoke beginning. So instructed to switch the engine off and let the marshals select neutral from the external attachment to the car, and Alex then undoes the wheel, begins to climb out. Hazardous place to be working like this for these marshals, very exposed, waved yellow flags, it's a yellow zone, so they are required to slow down, but slow down is a relative term to a racing driver. He thinks he knows better than the yellow lights, so we've seen so many cars off down there. It's important that everybody obeys the yellow line.
So with a little bit of dryness around on the track, we might see 1 or 2 improvements in times before the end of the session. A little conference going on there between Eddie Jordan and David Richards. Both Honda powered at the moment, but well, David Richards knows he's got Honda engines next year. Eddie may still be looking for them.
I tell you what, one's saying to the other, can I get a lift out of here in your helicopter, because I couldn't get my helicopter in this morning because the cloud base was too low. You know, it's one of those sort of conversations, and we need a lip reader, I think, sometimes to actually give us what is being said between people where we don't have a microphone to pick it up.
Well, Rubens Barrichello's just set the fastest time through the first sector, very rapid indeed, 27.9 seconds through the first part of the lap, and this looks like an improvement.
Yes, but there's still yellows down at Vale, and in fact he's obviously gone through that, because that sector time we have to wait and see what it's going to be. Just waiting for it to come up. It'll be here very shortly on the exit. 42.103. He's backed off a little bit. He had to do that. If he'd gone through on a personal best, Ralph off at Abbey now.
Well, everybody's had a go, and Ralf Schumacher, who celebrated his birthday last week, by the way, on the weekend off, the 27-year-old now, as he is, on the 30th of June, so he's another year older, another year wiser perhaps, but still able to fall off there. Abbey, there's test driver Marc Genet. He's been hard at work in the intervening period as well. There's been a lot of testing going on for the Williams team, working on the traction control systems as well as aerodynamic revisions, and trying to look at a way of protecting those rear tyres in particular with their traction control systems after problems at Monaco and the Nürburgring.
Rubens comes in, and this is the end of his day, just under a minute remaining, and there are cars out on track. Michael's still out, but nothing particularly special. Here's the view from Ralf Schumacher as he just loops the Williams BMW round in the first part of Abbey, harmlessly gets the engine going again, and he'll be back into the pits. No, he's actually back to stayed out. Ralph, there's the other view of that incident, and just showing you how treacherous conditions still are. In spite of a drying line appearing, it is still possible with little difficulty to loop a car.
Yes, and yellows are out once again. I'm not quite sure why they've come out. They're down at the Vale section.
I think they're still trying to get
yeah,
Young's car out of the way.
A little bit of fun going on here between Montoya and McNish.
And Montoya very unhappy. He's just backed off, and he's just decided, well, I'm going to spoil your lap.
Continue this lap, continue the lap. We need a timed lap.
So Montoya being instructed when he takes the checkered flag to remain at racing speed. They team on information.
Copy that, hard in, TC6.
Fisichella just completing off this session as well. As he gets it into Vale, a little bit sliding around, and but he sorts it out quite nicely. Third fastest, remember, Kimi Räikkönen coming through as well. Räikkönen currently 6th fastest, although he has improved on his first sector. Other people likely to improve on this lap. Nick Heidfeld going, well, he's just moved up slightly. He's up to 10th place now. Felipe Massa, not so much. Takuma Sato 5th fastest. That's a good effort.
Yes, very good to have two of your cars in the top 6. And Ferrari, I think, are the only team, along with Jordan, to achieve that.
So Räikkönen, let's see if this is an improvement for him. 6th fast, well, 7th he is now because he's just been pushed down, but he stays down in 7th place. No improvement on that lap.
It was an improvement in time,
yeah.
but that didn't affect his overall positions. And interestingly, Jacques Villeneuve retains that 6th quickest position. So I think the conversation wasn't about helicopters between Eddie Jordan and David Richards. It was probably about how Honda's improvements are blending in to both the Honda-powered teams.
So all cars have taken the checkered flag now, everybody making their way back towards the pit lane, and it's been the end of a very inconclusive time on Friday. It often is when you get these conditions changing throughout. What it has shown us is that in the middling conditions, where the track is drying out but is not fully dry, once again, that Bridgestone intermediate tyre, particularly on the Ferrari, is dauntingly fast. Everyone else struggling to keep up. But if it's more wet than that, if it's really a wet track, then the Michelin runners are in with a chance, because they were competitive with the Ferraris in those conditions.
Yes, we saw, I think, fairly major strides forward from the wet Michelin tyre in relation to its Bridgestone competitor, but it's this intermediate, the situation the circuit is in now, where the Michelin runners are basically staying out, I think, on that wet tyre, rather than venturing out in the intermediate, which they know is probably, in these conditions, no advantage to them whatsoever.
Look into the visor there for David Coulthard as everybody is making their way back into the pit lane. Montoya completing, and Jack Vil, we've got a slightly strange time.
I think, Ben, we've got a little bit of glitch on our timing screen. We've got Jack Villeneuve fastest.
Because he's some 16 seconds faster.
I tell you what, if he
knows
we're
looking at the times on screen now.
Yeah, I mean, if he knows a shortcut, I want to know about it, because I know Silverstone pretty well, and there's none that are that quick.
There it is, the computer, as we speak, readjusting the time, so Villeneuve ends up 6th fastest, as you can see from the times there. Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, though, dominant once again for Ferrari. And I think Matt has the chance to speak to Eddie Jordan.
Eddie, glorious summer weather has done us all. Hasn't done you too badly, has it?
We're used to it, and we're also used to it in the wet, I'm afraid, Matt. Yeah, it's a good sign. Friday for us is not a day that we necessarily look at times, but from a setup point of view, if it is wet for the race on Sunday, or indeed qualifying tomorrow, I think we have quite a nice balance on the car with both drivers.
Drivers indeed, and if we just take one of them, Fizzy Keller, doesn't matter what the weather is, he's on a roll at the moment, isn't he?
Well, I've been saying for some time, and I think most of the real experts in Formula One who are themselves judging drivers will tell you that I think Fizzy Keller for some time now has been in the top 3 drivers in the World Championship. He's very consistent. He hasn't quite got the equipment that he deserves, but we believe in his ability. We are sure, given the right situation and in the future, that Jordan hopefully can win a lot of races with him.
EJ, it's John here. I just want to say many congratulations on your honorary doctorate for services to international sport, which you received on Wednesday from the University of Ulster.
Can you shut this man up, please? He's a gross embarrassment. Well done, John. I know you mean that, and it's from your hometown. I personally was overjoyed. It was a very big thing, not just for me, but the family, but also those at home in Ireland, and I was very, very honoured. Yeah, it was great.
Now, Eddie, when is your country going to honour you?
Which country is that, John? I thought we were all one brethren. We were almost being friendly to you for once. I can't possibly imagine what you're on about. It took one of your very nice countrymen to give me a very nice evening. We're not getting into a party political broadcast here, are we, John?
Politics, I didn't bring him up, Eddie. You're the one that brought it up.
John, you will be permanently removed from that seat in that studio if you're not careful.
Eddie, you and me together.
Why not? Sounds like history.
Thanks, Matt. Well done anyway. Well done for today.
Bye. Thank you, John. He's got guy.
All good fun and entertainment as we are taking a look over this Silverstone circuit that has seen a bit of drama today. Lots of offs, lots of spins, lots of incidents. Not too many problems, thankfully. All been good entertaining stuff, and we can now look back over the highlights of today's free